Believe this or not, the Wall Street Journal just published a report that AI is not actually helping us work less. In fact, it's the opposite. According to the story, it's making us do more distracting work and less deep work. The study saw a 9% drop in the concentration required for figuring out complex problems, for creating and strategizing, with no drop in non-AI users. So sure, we can say all day long that AI is helping us do more and it's making us more productive, but how many of us are really thinking about whether AI is the right tool for the job? This is a quote taken directly from the blog of our guest today, podcast systems expert and my friend Joe Casabona, who is here to show you where AI slows down your workflow, where automation actually does the job better, and the 3-question test to know if the AI tool you're using is actually helping you or just adding more work. Welcome to Insider Secrets to a Top 100 podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Elmer. Let's make your podcast binge-worthy. Joe, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited for this.
We needed to have you back because we opened up a can of worms in the episode before this one, but hopefully in a good way, because when it comes to AI, there's a lot we need to be thinking about. And that is my goal for you listening right now, is to really think about the way in which you're utilizing AI. Because at the end of the day, I know that you have a podcast because you have a message that you feel called to share. And you're here because you want to get that message out to the world in a broader, wider, more far-reaching way. You believe a podcast is the way to do it, but your podcast is not growing in the way that you expected. All turn to AI to help us save time and to make the work we're doing better. We want it to resonate. We want it to connect with people. And I think that's why many of us turn to AI for help with those things. In the process, we can easily lose sight of when we are giving too much of our own control and our own genius over to AI and letting AI do the thinking for us. So Joe, you brought up some really important points in the episode before this one about the problems that creates, not just for us as creators, the ethical dilemmas that can create, but also the very real impact that can have on the listeners that we have listening to our podcast, which undermines the goal that we are working so hard to achieve, which is to keep those listeners listening, to keep them engaged with our show. It actually causes them to check out and to disconnect. So let's get into it and talk about, if you're using AI for your podcast, how do you spot bad output? You know, we've heard garbage in, garbage out, but how do you actually know if something's too generic? Are there any red flags that you could tell us, like, hey, yeah, this might sound polished because AI polished it for me, but this is not actually going to pull someone in and build trust and make them want to keep listening?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I do want to, because I went to a Jesuit college, I always have to jam this in, but like Socrates is a really important figure to me. And he never lectured anybody. He just asked questions to make people think about their positioning. And I think this is what we need to do with AI, right? Like, don't do things without thought. Don't use AI without thinking about how you're going to use it. And so how do we spot bad AI? My wife and I are watching The Pit right now. She's a nurse and she loves it. And it is very realistic and makes me queasy sometimes, but it's really good storytelling. And there's a character in one of the seasons that loves AI. And the main character talks about gut feeling. And he says that's something that AI will never have. And so like when you see AI, a little bit is like a gut feeling, right? I will read something and be like, I know exactly what this is about, and this doesn't do anything for me. And so like if it just seems like it's like a bunch of words connected by connectors that isn't designed to evoke emotion, that's bad output. All of our writing, all of our episodes, all of our content needs to evoke emotion. And when you are doing something for humans, do it for humans, and a human should do it. In the last episode, we talked about an ineffable quality. And it's a little bit of that here. It's not like if it uses delve, right? If it uses bottom line, cut that out. No person says bottom line. Like no human being says bottom line.
I do when I'm correcting my 8-year-old though. Like bottom line, you just can't have another donut. And then that's just going to be how it's going to be. I do use it in those cases, but I know exactly what you're getting at. The
Great
M dashes.
point. Yes. No one summarizes their points in long form writing by going bottom line. So like it is a little bit of an ineffable quality, but like I want you to read the output and clock how you feel. Don't just go like, okay, that's everything I talked about, copy paste. Because that is going to do nothing for your listeners.
I also think, Joe, there's an important point here that we got to just shed a light on, because there is this belief or thought that AI saves you time. I can see that argument. I can see in some ways in which it does save time. But in reality, at least in my experience, I have often found, and probably more often found, that it just shifts where I'm spending my time. Instead of spending the time writing the email reply, I'm now in ChatGPT saying, polish this email reply because, I don't know, mine isn't good enough? Like, why? I'm not really sure. But we're under this illusion that AI saves us time. When it comes to podcasting specifically, since, if you're listening right now, that's why you listen to this show. Let's talk about your podcast. Where do you see that people are using AI when really they could be using an automation?
I was thinking about this over the weekend, and the difference, there is a big difference between like a traditional automation and having AI do something for you. And that is that one is not opinionated. Automation is not opinionated. You say when X happens, do Y. It is clear and it is predictable. You don't need to check the output because it's going to produce the same output every time. So when you are trying to do something, come up with an outline for a guest, and you say, you use AI to be like, this is my guest, come up with 5 questions for me to ask them. Don't use AI for that. What you should actually do is have a good intake form, send all of that stuff to your podcast planner, and then because you didn't have to do that manual process of getting them on your calendar, booking the time, you have the time to come up with 5 questions. You don't want to mistake task automation for using AI to perform a task. You want to remove yourself from the tedious part and not the part that helps you connect with people. And so like with AI agents, I could probably say, this is what my podcast is about. Research 10 guests, write a pitch, email them. Ask them if they want to come on my show. That is a terrible use for AI. You don't know who it's going to pick. You don't know what it's going to say in the email. You might burn all of your credibility. You don't know if the email is going to reach the person. And so in that instance, you might I always use the deep research function in AI to surface primary sources. This is super important. Don't read the summary, click the link that it surfaces for you. And then, because I've saved some time hunting and pecking on the internet for an expert in this thing, I can use that time to record a quick 1 or 2 minute video where I say, hey, Courtney, I just wanted to take a minute to reach out to you, invite you onto my show to talk about X, Y, and Z. And I'm very intentional about saying the person's name in the video because, again, it's about connecting, not removing myself from that process, removing myself from tedious work.
You have just nailed the problem that so many podcasters experience that is really hard to put your finger on in the moment, where you mentioned confusing task automation with utilizing an AI tool. And right now, a lot of hosts are doing a lot of tasks for their podcast. They're running this podcast solo. They might be editing it themselves. They have to do everything themselves. They have to book the guests. They have to do all the things. And they might have some tools, right? Most of us have a calendar, for example, to say, okay, here's the link guest, go book a time. But there are a lot of unseen, invisible tasks, and if you're listening, you know, that go into creating a podcast. And so if you're spending your time doing a lot of those tasks, then there is no time for the creative work. Creative work takes time. It takes your full brain. So then you turn to AI for help with that creative work because you don't have time to get it done. AI actually waters down your genius. And the thing that could have solved the problem in the first place was simple task automation. Is that what you're telling us? Is that what you really are telling us here, Joe? Or am I totally off base with that?
No, you are 100%.
I think it's a revelation right there in and of itself, because we find ourselves in these problem loops. And then we go, and then look, I could go down a whole rabbit hole here about, the problems you are here to help your person solve on your podcast and the things they are doing right now to help them fix that problem that you know how to fix better, because you're here to help that person actually achieve the outcome that they want. And the same is true for us with our own day-to-day processes. Sometimes we're just so you can't read the label from inside the jar. We're so close to the work that we do that we're just trying to get the work done. We don't take a step back to see, well, where could I improve the workflow? Where could I buy myself some time back? Where could I get some relief in the pressure that I'm feeling to get this weekly episode out, for example? So I think this is just really enlightening, and I would love for you to unpack a couple things. Because number one, I know that you call it the 3-question test, but it's something that you utilize to know, do you need to use an AI to perform this task? But I would also love, before we get there, to tackle a question that you actually got when you spoke on this at Podfest, which is, how do you know when you've become overly reliant on AI? Because that right there can suck up time that we don't even know we're giving to AI. But that if we're talking about getting our time back, we need to be able to answer. So I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah. I'm thinking a lot about an article I read about GLP-1s recently, which is that as soon as you come off the GLP-1, you gain the weight back. Your body has become reliant on this. And if it's not present, then you no longer see the benefits. So how does this apply to AI? Well, if you can't go 5 minutes thinking about a problem before turning to AI, you have become too reliant on AI. Because I know that you have 5 minutes, you just spent 25 scrolling TikTok or getting mad at that Facebook post. So if you're not willing to invest your time in thinking about a problem for more than a few minutes, it's not game over for you, but you need to stop. And this is why I don't use AI for the pre-production stuff for my podcast, because I don't want to turn my thinking into whatever AI tells me to think.
Yeah, I find myself here a lot, Joe, where my mental capacity, the context switching that I have to do in a day is absolutely absurd. If I were to tell you just yesterday all the things that I had to touch in a day between my personal life, our side hustle, short-term rental business, my main business, the new partnership that we're in the midst of finalizing right now, and just parenting, my own mental health, making sure I remember to eat in a day, all the things that I have to touch in a day. The context switching is insane. And I'm like, how do I remove myself from my life so that I can fix my life so that I don't have to context switch as much? Like, that's kind of the place in which I am living right now. And sometimes, my point being, our mental loads are just so heavy that, we turn to tools to help us do the thing that we want to do. I would love to sit here and spend hours writing an article, but my life doesn't allow for that right now. So what do? Turn to AI. Here's my brain dump of thoughts. Help me organize this. It's all my thoughts. Okay, great. No, I don't like that. Fix that. Let's improve this. Da-da-da-da. The output is something I approve. And then that kind of is what goes out into the world, And so it's like my hands have been all over that. I'm not taking something verbatim, copy pasting, and AI wrote this for me. But at the same time, could I have just done the thing? Could I have just sat down and written those show notes myself in less time than it would have taken? Probably. But there's the mental capacity issue, right? So I think this is, if you have anything to add to this, if you know how to solve this problem, please help me, because I do feel like this is just something that we all face.
This is really important, right? This is not to promote my own service framework thing, but this is the thing that I help people do, because context switching is ever present in all of our lives, right? People say you need AI to survive now, or you're going to fall behind. But you know who didn't have AI? Marcus Aurelius, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Marie Curie, Steve Jobs, Emily Dickinson, the people who have produced the world's greatest creative works did it all pretty much before a computer, let alone before AI because they had time and space. I had a day recently where I had no meetings. My wife was home. The kids were at school. I had a great day where I got to dive in deep. And it's because I have tried to limit context switching. This is a framework for another time, but I have a method for how to get yourself into some deep work pockets so that you have the time and space to solve the problems with your own brain. Because the truth is, like, if you can replace yourself with AI, who's to say your clients can't replace you with AI? Then what's the point of them hiring you?
Yeah, I actually do want to go down that rabbit hole with you. If you would entertain that for me for a moment, what is this deep work framework that you speak of? Because I know that everyone listening to would like to know what that is and how it helps you.
Yes. I have called this the solopreneur sweep. Full disclosure, I'm bad at naming things, actually bad. And so AI did help me with this. But it's the idea that our sunroom, the sunroom in our house, was always a place of overstimulation and stress to me because it was so messy. And all it takes is a 5-minute cleanup to make the sunroom livable again. And so, what does that 5-minute cleanup, what does that sweep look like in your business? You want to look at three things. Where is your time going? What work are you doing? And everything should have a place, which is organize your toolbox: time, tasks, and tools. Are your meetings disjointed? Are they throughout the week? Can anybody just grab a time on your calendar whenever they want? With your work, do you know the three things that you're going to accomplish each day? Three, really important. Three things. Or do people bang into your inbox and say, hey, can you do this real quick? Because now your workday is being controlled by other people. And with your tools, do you spend more time fighting your tools, paying for tools you don't use? Do you have the tool that accomplishes the job that you hired, quote unquote, that tool to do? When you get all three of those things under control, you can now plan your week and say, these are the three tasks I'm going to get done each day. So 15 assuming a 5-day work week, 15 tasks per week. These are the days based on my meetings that I have in very specific times. These are the days that I'm going to do those tasks. And I'm not going to be fighting my tools because I'm not switching all the time. I'm not getting shiny object syndrome. I have a very specific tool to accomplish this job and accomplish it well. Do that sweep or that 5-minute cleanup, and you will find the time. You will have the time and space to do your best work.
Yeah. Well, naming frameworks aside, you were great at creating them, Joe. And I always appreciate your frameworks because everyone loves a good framework, but also because it can help your brain organize the things that you really couldn't like put your finger on and say, like, okay, this is exactly what I need to do. And speaking of frameworks, I know that you've got this 3-question test that you also ask, do I need to do this task? Does AI need to do it for me? What am I actually doing here? And so can you take us through that framework?
Yeah, for sure. So the first question is possibly the most important one. Does this task actually need to be performed? Do I need to do this? We all do a lot of things that we probably don't need to do. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. And so if it doesn't need to be performed, then neither you nor AI should be doing it. So that's the first question. If it does need to be performed, you need to ask yourself, what is the goal of this task? Because without knowing the goal, you can't know if AI can help you with it, and you can't know if AI is helping you with it. And then finally, if AI can help you with this task, how can I measure if and how AI is helping me with this task? 2 examples. One is very podcast specific. So the first is writing a sales page, because I was having a conversation with a friend who pays for the most on Claude. And I said, is it worth it? And he said, yeah, it's really good at writing sales pages. And I said, good as in it converts the people who were going to the sales page, or good as in you didn't have to write the sales page? And he said, yeah, that's a important thing to consider. I've had people say, oh, AI is 10x my productivity. And I'm like, does that just mean you do more, or that you're doing things better? Is that 10x? Like, is that 10x income? That's the 10x I care about. And so writing a sales page with the 3-question test. Does this task need to be performed? Yes. What is the goal of the task? To get people to book a sales call with me. How can I measure this goal? Am I getting at least 3 people per week to book a sales call? If you choose to have AI write that sales page and it is not getting 3 people a week to book a sales call, AI has failed that task. And now it's like, okay, maybe a human should write it. Now, here's the one that I think I am most excited about, and the thing that might actually get me to pay for Claude Max or Claude Cowork or whatever. Prepping a podcast episode for publish. I have a Zapier automation mostly that does this right now. So I record my podcast episode in Logic Pro. I save it to a folder called production. Then I have to take that and put it into my transcription thing, and then take that output and put it into my podcast editor project thingy and copy and paste all of that and put it into Notion and make the changes and then mark it as ready for publish. Does this task need to be performed? Yes. Assuming like that people listen to your podcast and it actually helps you with your business. What is the goal of this task? Here's the important part. The goal of this task is to have a fully transcribed episode with assets created and added to Notion, which is my podcast planner, for me to review. Notice I didn't say finished product. I didn't say published on the web. I said stuff where I had to move things into a bunch of apps for me to review. How can I measure this goal? Once I'm done recording, will all of the assets show up in Notion without me having to do anything? This is something that Claude Cowork can do because it can watch a folder and then it could take the latest file in that folder and it can open it up in Mac Whisper, and then it could take the transcript from Mac Whisper and copy it into the Claude project and then copy all of that into Notion. And now it's ready for review in Notion. And so when I'm reviewing all of my text, now I just saved myself 15 minutes per episode. So if I record 4 episodes in a day, I just bought myself back an hour to think about what are the questions my audience has and do that pre-production AI free work.
Oh, you so beautifully put a bow on the end of this conversation, Joe, because I do feel like we have a lot to think about when it comes to AI. And a lot of us are using it right now for help with all the things we say we need help with that we might very well validly need help with, saving time and the mental capacity and, getting some of the tasks done because we're carrying so many tasks ourselves and wearing all the hats in our business/podcast/life. This 3-question test is brilliant, by the way, because it's not just saying, do I need to do this task and should AI perform it, but it's how am I measuring whether or not if I'm using AI for this task that it actually was effective. And this is the layer that we don't get to, the level of depth that we need to get to. And really all of this points to freeing up and giving back your time to be able to create, which, surprise, surprise, is the thing you probably started a podcast to do in the first place.
Going back to Socrates, I'm not saying don't use AI for this. I'm saying if you use AI for this, how are you measuring if AI is actually helping you?
Yeah, so that it protects the mental space that we need to show up and perform at our best level. So it's a goal to have, a thing to set your sights on. Joe, you've helped us believe that it's possible. And if you need help doing it, go work with Joe because he really is a genius at this stuff. I know we've got a lot of your blog posts and things that we'll link to in the show notes too, just for more research and reading. No one likes research, but reading and education around, when should I use an automation versus when should I use AI versus how can I use AI better and so on and so forth and all the things. So Joe, thank you for being here today, for helping us raise and ask some very important questions. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure, Courtney. Thanks for having me on. This was a great conversation.
I agree. I thought this was a great conversation too. These are the conversations that are intended to make you think. And if you enjoyed it, I would love it if you would rate and review the show and let me know what you thought about it. And speaking of rating and reviewing, shout out to Hey Audra Joe, who says, I just stumbled across this podcast and timing couldn't have been better since I just started my show. I've had so many, that's what I need to change moments in just a few episodes. Thank you for not gatekeeping the important tips for us newbies. You are welcome, Hey Audra Joe, and thank you for taking the time to let me know the show's been helpful for you. I really really do read every review that comes through, and it's like a little jolt of caffeine in my podcast workflow that keeps me going. So thank you for that. You know, I was going to dig back in my podcast archives because I'm thinking about, what should we talk about in the next episode? And then it hit me because this is a question that I get a lot and that we haven't covered here on this show, which is when, where, and how often to place ads in your podcast. Whether it's a sponsor thing, whether it's your own calls to action, or another type of affiliate offer or traditional podcast ad, we are going to break it all down. Coming up right here next to help you make your podcast binge-worthy.